Hello everyone, my name is Ryan. Welcome back if you've watched my other stories so far. I hope you enjoyed. I was very proud of my story about Diogenes and Plato's man. For those of you that didn't see it, that's about a Greek philosopher that bullies his fellow philosopher in front of all of his students because it was simply too good of a joke to let up. But this time around, we're telling a little bit of a different story. Let's call this story The Week I Found Peace. Now, after I graduated high school, probably 4 or 5 years back now, I was living life. I had some spare money from my graduation party. I had some family that had set me up with some stuff, like a car. It wasn't the best car, mind you. It was just drivable. It was good. It was a vehicle that drove, and I was happy to have it. Now, something that didn't quite click in right away was adulthood is not only complicated and scary and all these other super big idea things, but it's also really boring. And it's not boring alone, you're stressed at the same time. Now, I learned this about 2 or 3 months after graduation. I'd moved in with a former girlfriend of mine, and I was living with her and her mom out in a new city because I had followed them out there and I was kind of running away. Now, that's a different story for a separate time, but there was at one point where I said, I'm running out of money. I enjoy eating pizza a little too much. And I don't want to give up all of the money for pizza. I also want to go out and do stuff. The gas in the car needs to be refilled. Insurance needs to be paid. And so I found myself a job. I was working retail, regular old cashier, wearing my apron and had my hair all nice and done and showed up with a smile every day. Every day. Over and over again. Week in, week out. Every day. Now, as a kid who just recently left high school as a theater major, as a theater focus in high school, going from the creativity and the passion of dancers and actors and singers around me all the time to suddenly being surrounded by people just going to their 9 to 5, it was a lot. It was a bit of a change up. Now, that's not to be demeaning to anybody. I met many wonderful people, so perfectly just right to meet at that part of my life. But it was monotonous. It was boring. I'd have a shift at night and I'd go in. The sun would be setting as I'm driving to work. I'd have the radio going. I'd do my job. I'd be heading back home. And I did this over and over for months. It was such a dead-end job, you would not believe. And at one point, I could tell I wasn't the same anymore. I was getting tired and I was getting angry. And growing up with a little bit of an anger issue, I got worried about that. And so I sat and I thought and I wondered and I kept thinking to myself, what could I do to fix this? Not only would it make my life better at work, it'd make my life better at home, and it'd make my life better for me. And the genius idea that I came up with was, what if we ignore it? What if we just put it all to the side, sweep it under the rug, push it into the closet, shut the door real fast, and what if we did nothing about it? What if we played our games, we listened to our music, we ate our pizza, and we had a great time? What if we just didn't handle it? And it worked for a little bit, when suddenly reality comes knocking. And not realizing it, I open the door and all these emotions come flooding back onto me simply because my order was wrong. And I just got angry. And then I went to work later that day and my boss was being just nasty about everything. And it wasn't even my fault, but I was there, so I was going to get some of it. And I get home, and on my drive home, I'm dealing with everybody that should not have a license that is suddenly surrounding my vehicle, all breaking a different law of the road. And I got home and I said, this isn't working. This isn't working. And I get home and I sit myself inside looking just like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. And my girlfriend's mom, let's call her Margaret, she walks over and she says, boy, what's wrong with you? And I went, well, nothing's wrong. I'm just not feeling too great. And she had noticed this because all mothers, even ones you're not related to, are very attentive. And she clocked it right away. You need a get right chair. And I went, a what? And she explained it to me. Anytime that you have something in life that's just the worst, you don't bring it with you. You don't shove it away. You deal with it. You sit with it. And I thought about that for a second. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. And then it occurred to me, now what was the get right chair bit? And she laughs and says, well, you find a spot to do that in. For her, it was her little lawn chair that she had in her room where she gets to lounge and relax. For me, it became the backyard, the patio. I'd sit and I'd stare and watch the birds play and chirp and fly off and hear the dogs barking in the distance, the distant humming of cars on the highway, and I just experienced everything. Now, I have found this very, very helpful in life because not only did it give me a moment to decompress, it was something that gave me the time to really acknowledge what made me upset, what made me happy. And as I started doing this more and more, especially as times got harder or more complicated, it gave me the time and the space to not make decisions, but just to exist. And with life going 1,000 miles a second, just existing is good enough. And so I wanted to share that with all of you, just to remind you that sometimes finding peace is just a matter of slowing down, taking a sit, looking at the birds, maybe listening to some music, and letting yourself exist. I hope that helps somebody. I know it helped me. Thank you.